Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Today we have a last lecture of this course, Soil Quality and Management, and that is basically very general about the soil research, that what kind of research should be conducted in the future, or what is to be expected in future if we look at the scenario, the climate change scenario, and the global warming and the uh, population increase. Uh, so, so we will see that what kind of or what themes are important in future soil research. Before going toward that, we must know that what soil actually is and what kind of factors they are affecting on the soil. So uh, if we just see the based on the soil formation or the factor affecting on the soil formation, so that is the climate, organisms, relief, parent material, and the time. So these all basically they affect the soil formation. So it means so they have impact on the characteristics of soil, the development of the soil, and you may also say that the degradation of soil is also important on these factors, because these factors basically they affect uh, the soil characteristics. Uh, just going brief in brief detail. So if we have the research relevant to the climate effect, so there are subjects: the meteorology, the climatology, the climate change, the hydrology of the hydrological cycle, the carbon cycle. So this are so all they are important to study, to have the impact, to see the impact of climate change on the soil and future scenarios. So if we the second factor, so that is the organisms in the soil. So the biology of the organisms, microbes, and then the faunas, plants, the microbial populations, uh, palynology, the grains, the pollens basically present in the soils, the forest lands, and the overall the ecology. So all these uh, are the studies which are relevant to the organisms and soil interactions. Then we have a relief, so that is relevant to the geographic information systems. So that can tell us about the topography of the soil, then the geomorphology, the structures of the soil, the physical appearance of the soil. So that is basically relevant to relief and the soil interactions. So these are the sciences basically which cover this area. So then we have parent material, the stratigraphy, sedimentology, the layering of the soil particles, and the development. So these are the sciences which will study the parent material and soil interaction. And then we have the time. So we have the geologic, pedologic, and recent planes of the soil, which basically uh, uh, which basically covers the characteristics of soil which are changing with the time. So these are the few sciences which which study the different factors affecting on the soil. So now coming toward the future research directions, you can say, in the current scenario. So we can see here that the research will be on based on the demands of the soil and the characterization of the soil functions, to understand the soil function in a better way. The soil buffering capacity is a very old term which is used, so, but it's very important to control to regulate the soil reactions and soil chemistry. We know that the soils and ecosystem service, so that is very important because soil has a major role in the ecosystem service. So So these kind of studies are much needed in this scenario. Then the human nutrition is totally dependent on the soil quality. The research is being conducted that have to be conducted on the human nutrition aspect, or considering the human nutrition aspect, and then the system approach to improve the soil health. So this is very important in the research scenario of climate change. So we'll have a brief discussion on that uh, one by one. So first one, that is the future demand. We know the population is increasing and we need the food security and for the increasing population, and uh, there will be pressure on the soil. So the research uh, have to be conducted to decrease that pressure on the soil, which is due to the population. Then the self-sustainability of soil is very important, uh, because when there is a more stresses or more pressure on the soil, the self-sustainability uh, or self-functioning of the soil. So that is very important. The global warming and the soil functions, the role of soil in the global warming. So that is very important to study. Land use variation due to urbanization and industrialization. So this is not maybe relevant, directly relevant to the soil researchers, but there is a need to decrease the pressure on the soil by decreasing or reducing the expansion on the fertile lands. So because if you will occupy the fertile lands in urbanization and industrialization, so of course there will be more pressure on the soils for food security. Uh, this is also relevant to strategically to the soil research. So another aspect, which is the soil buffering capacity, resisting the soil to degradation, because if you will actually what we are seeing in the future, so we are seeing more pressure on the soils. The soils with the high buffering capacity to resist the soil degradation. So that is a very important function of soil in the future. If we just look at the different functions or reactions in the soils which are involved in the acidification and the alkalinization of the soil. So just to have an idea that these may affect the soil pH. Uh, Nitrification, oxidative metabolism, and addition of sulfur. So they are basically involved in the H ion release. And all other functions, the denitrification, the microbial respiration, addition of lime, the fire, the rapid mineralization of soil organic matter, uh, ion uptake. So ion uptake basically is that also uh, release the protons. So mistakenly it has not been marked here in the orange. So uh, actually in some scenarios, so there is a co-transport of nitrate, for example. So in that case, the H ions are being taken up by the plants, and in some scenarios, so they are coming out. So to somehow the ion uptake is also involved in H ion release, but also in the H ion absorption by the plants. Then the petrolysis during the dilution, there is a hydrolysis of water, and then the H ions that will go to the what you say the clay particles, and then the OH ion will be released in the solution, so that will also cause the alkalinization. The breakdown of proteins, so they also release OH ions, so mean towards the alkalinization. So it's very important and crucial to understand the H ion release and absorption, the function to enhance the buffering capacity of the soil. Another aspect which is important for soil research, so that is to understand the soil ecosystem services and to make it more able to perform these functions. For, just in general, the four categories are the ecosystem services of soil. Product, it provides the food, drugs, and building materials. So we are using that. Of course, the resources, it's the source of carbon, so water storage, it's biodiversity, and the nutrient cycling. The nutrients, so they are also present in the soil. So the soil is the big source, resource of all these. Then environment, the soil erosion, water quality, greenhouse gas emissions. So that is also dependent on the soil. Uh, and that is the ecosystem service. Uh, Greenhouse gas emission uh, is related to the environment and the soil interaction. So of course, when there is more greenhouse gases, there will be negative effect on the environment. But it's of course a relation with the environment. Then it's a garden. In the culture, the garden, the cemetery, and the recreation. Cemetery is the burying of dead bodies, the animals and the humans. So the soil is working for us in that sense as well. Then the recreational, the sports, and many other activities. So they are being done on the soil surface. So these are basically the ecosystem function. In some, we can play a role to enhance the ability of soil to perform this function. So, but in real sense, we have to prepare the soil to perform all these functions. And some functions which are directly affected by different activities, so they are more important for managing the soil. Then managing soil for human nutrition, we know that the humans, so they are getting nutrition through plants and through animals. And the plants, it means the concentration of the nutrients in the plants, which are required for animals and humans, so that is very important. So what they are getting, the plants, they get minerals from the soil, and they are converting those minerals either into the proteins, fats, carbohydrates, vitamins, or it's the minerals in the free form in the plant tissues. So the plants, they are not only source of proteins, fats, carbohydrates, and vitamins for the animals, they are also a source of minerals for the animals and the human. So the minerals, as the minerals, they are coming from the soil. So the ability of soil to provide those minerals to the soil, to the plants, that is very important for the human nutrition as well, because all the proteins, fats, carbohydrates are they are dependent on the minerals, and the high concentration of mineral in the soil will lead to high concentration in the plant tissue, and that will lead the nutritional value of the food produced on that size. And of course, vice versa, if the quality is poor. So then the human nutrition will be affected. So in that, for that, the improvement in the soil nutrition, the conservation of soil health, and sustainable use of soils, because mostly the minerals, they are affected due to intensive use of soils. So if we make it more sustainable, so that will enhance the nutrition value. Soil pollution is also playing a role to decrease the nutrition value of plants and then the animals and humans consequently. And the fifth point, which is the last point, and which is very important in this scenario, and which tell us about the direction of soil research. That is the system approach to improve the soil health. What is system approach? It is basically line of thought in the management field which stresses the interactive nature and interdependence of external and external factors in an organization. So there are a lot of functions uh, which factors which affect the interaction between the nature, and there are a lot of factors which are interdependent. So to study all those in in well organized way, so that is basically the system approach. We have to make the soils able to provide the functions which totally cover the system. For example, enhance the food production capacity, so that is the soil function. So we have to conduct the research in such a way to find the interventions to enhance the food production capacity of the soil, because we need it. But at the same time, we have to produce a quality and nutritious food. It should have uh, all necessary nutrients which are required for animal human nutrition, and along with that must not have the pollutants in that, the pesticide residues, they must not be in the food which is being provided from that side. Then to sustain the soil, because as you deteriorate the soil, so the profitability will be decreased and the farm will be difficult to run, because we have to continue the uh, agriculture for food security. So we have to make the farm profitable. So we have to sustain soil to make the farm profitable. Carbon sequestration from the atmosphere, because due to different activities, we are uh, enhancing the carbon dioxide concentration in the atmosphere, so that must be sequestered, and we have to make the soil able to sequester that, along with uh, and reactive nitrogen emissions, at least through the agriculture, so they must be reduced, because they are also contributing to the global warming. Improving and sustaining the biodiversity of the soil. So the populations, the living part of the soil, so that must be sustained and protected. And the pressure on the soil must be decreased. The use of chemicals, that must be decreased, because they always have some kind of a negative effect on the soil characteristics. So we have to move toward the nature if we want to make it more sustainable. The practices which can promote the above mentioned functions and abilities, the cropping systems, because as I said, that we have to go toward the nature. So if we have a very systematic cropping system, which is to sustain the soil quality, because if we are growing one crop, for example, maize again and again, so it will deteriorate. We have to set the cropping system in such a way that balance the soil nutrition and the soil quality. We have to grow the restorative crops and exhaustive and less exhaustive crops. Intercropping to get benefit from each other. For example, if we are growing leguminous crops in the non-leguminous, so we are also contributing the nitrogen. So all we have already discussed in the previous lecture. So these are the basically the things which can promote these function for system approach studies. So that was all. I would like to thank you for your cooperation during this semester, because we had some classes uh, face by face, and then we had about half of the classes online. But I really appreciate your cooperation in online classes, and I also wish good luck for your upcoming examination. Thank you very much.